Alright, howdy gamers, and welcome back to another episode of Together We Design. I am your host, Anarchy, and on today's episode, we are going to be focusing on color correction. We're going to learn how to spot bad color corrections and how to fix them and how to color correct properly. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some examples of bad color correction. Here's a poster for Gooseway that I made about a year ago. This poster is not good for a multitude of reasons, but one of the reasons that makes it so not good is the color corrections on all of these photos. These are 3 separate photos that were taken in different environments. So this is an official league headshot. This one was taken on stage with neutral lighting, and then this one was taken during a walkout with pink lighting on the stage. So these quite obviously look like they do not belong in the same graphic together. Maybe these two if I would have fixed this one a little bit, but this one just looks like really not good. I think if I remember correctly, I wanted to use a different photo, but the cutting out of his body was kind of weird, so I just used this one. This pink on his face is really harsh and is not very good. I should fix that. This one, I mean, this one is good in terms of it being like the lighting and stuff looks pretty good, but it's just like this looks this looks very crunchy. Here is a poster that I did recently for Fleta. Because the Shanghai Dragons have really good photos of their players on their Twitter account, so I wanted to do a poster. In this one, the color correction on the Genjis here is really nice. I really like this color correction on them. The shadows and the highlights are really good. They look really they just look really cool. I really like it. And the red just blends in really nice. And up here too as well. This looks very good. The issue here is the picture of Fleta. This picture of Fleta does not look like it belongs anywhere near these two. And that's what you really want to do with color correction. You want to do color correction so that it looks like it belongs where it's supposed to. When it comes to doing just like photos, you just want to make the photo look nice. But color correction is really important when you're doing graphics with pictures, because if not, it can ruin this. This poster I really liked, but looking back at this now, I hate this color correction. He looks too desaturated compared to these two who are kind of saturated. I think the matte filter on the poster looks good everywhere except for him. He looks cool compared to the rest of this poster, which is warm. It's filled with warm colors, red and yellow, and then he just looks kind of like blue. So I could have done a better job at fixing this color correction. The last example we're going to look at is this header that I made for Nero a couple months ago. I really like this header. This is one of the first headers I made, transitioning from a more extra super grungy kind of style to doing a more streetwear kind of vibe, I guess. I really like this poster, or this header, excuse me. The only thing about this is this photo. Nero looks very nice in this photo. It was one of the few pictures I could find of him from this season. That was something we could have fixed. He looks very pale, and this bluish color here, this blue color doesn't like match the actual blue color. Now I think it looks like this in the actual picture. It's a muted blue. I don't think it's meant to look like the actual blue colors that Guangzhou have. This could still be matched a little bit better because it just kind of looks like it doesn't fit in. So we could do a better job of that. So that's what we're gonna do in this episode. We're gonna try and fix this so it looks a lot better using camera roll. All right, so now we're in Photoshop. We're in the PSD of this header, and we're gonna go ahead and fix this picture. So this picture does already has a color correction in quotations, but it's not a good color correction. This is what the original photo looks like. So I did fix it to a degree. This photo is very yellow. Honestly, it probably could have kept some of this yellowness just so he doesn't look so pale. He looks stupidly pale. And so you can open up Camera Raw by either going to Filter and Camera Raw, or you can on your keyboard press Control-Shift-A and it'll open up Camera Raw. So here's new Camera Raw. It looks really different from the old version of Camera Raw. They just updated Creative Cloud and all the apps. So Camera Raw got a little bit of a makeover. Everything is they're now like drop down menus instead of tabs. So if I get a little bit confused, forgive me, because they kind of just updated this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the white balance. So that's temperature and tint. Auto is pretty good most of the time. It doesn't look to have helped here. What auto does is the white balance is it'll balance the white, I guess. Auto is good most of the time. In this case, it kind of made it more yellow, which we don't want. We're gonna go back to S shot, and we're gonna mess with this a little bit. Try and balance this like white color out a little bit, I guess. But like I said, we do not want to make him too pale. Usually what my go-to is for color corrections are contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, blacks, clarity, and then curves, which is an extension of these. The way that I usually do things, I like to have, like I said earlier, I like to have kind of harsh, I like to do harsh like color correction, I guess, because of the sporty, grungy kind of style I like to do a lot. That's usually what I mess with first to try and get those strong, harsh kind of color correction going on. But we're not going to do too much just because it doesn't fit the rest of the header. That's the one thing you want to try and do when you're doing graphic design like this, is you want to make sure that the color correction fits the setting that the photo is in, because you can do anything called a color, you can do anything to a photo and call it a color correction, but it's not a good color correction if it doesn't fit the rest of the header. We're just going to mess with the highlights and shadows. Usually I like to make the highlights and the whites brighter and the shadows and the blacks darker, just so you get that wider range of highlights and shadows. If you click on this here at the bottom, click on that, you can get a before and after of the color correction in camera raw, which is really cool. So you can look at it side by side to see if what you're doing to the photo actually looks better with a preview. I'm gonna mess with the clarity. I'm gonna move that up a little bit though, just so there's some texture to it. The other, though, we might turn that back down just because this is a photo that came off of Twitter. Clarity helps a lot when you have like actually like professional taken photos that are high quality. It can hurt a design actually if you use like too much texture or clarity, because it'll make it look extra super grainy. At this point you can see the grain here in this green bar. This is masked out, so it won't look too bad. Clarity can help when you have a sort of a grainy photo. It can just make it look a little bit better, but you don't want to overdo it. That's the other thing with color corrections. A lot of people overdo color correction. They color correct too much, and they kind of ass blast the image, and it just doesn't look good. We'll saturate this a little bit there, and let's see, make it so this, just so this can pop out a little bit more against this background. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mess with curves. Basically, the curves are this left hand side is dark, the blacks and the shadows, and this upper right hand part is the whites and the highlights. This also goes along with it's basically an extension of what we did up here, so it will make the lights lighter and the darks darker. But you see, we kind of just deep fried the image there, which we don't want to do. When I'm doing curves, at least this way, I usually just mess with the sliders. So we'll do like 5 and 5. I think I don't want to overdo this. -5, -5. Detail is sharpening, so I like to sharpen stuff a lot when I do like my color corrections, just to give that grainy kind of effect without having noise. And it also sharpen the image. So if you have like a really like kind of like a, not a blurry image per se, but like something that's not particularly of the highest quality, sharpening it can help it pop out a little bit more. So this is not something we also want to overdo, because if we do, it will become even more grainy, and it'll just look stupid by that point. So we'll do like 25 here. We don't have to worry about this grain on the green screen behind him because we've masked it out, so we just have to worry about what his face will look like. So the color mixer is where you can mess with colors. So you can mess with the luminance, which is the brightness. So we could say turn that green in the background down if we were leaving that up, or we can turn the blues down. We can make it lighter or darker, which we're not gonna do. We're not gonna do right there. But that's what I'll do. Saturation is self-explanatory. Saturation, so we could saturate his face if we wanted to, or saturate his shirt, depending on what channel it's under. Don't think we're gonna do that though, just because I think the shirt is meant to be like a palish blue kind of color. It's not meant to represent these over here. But the other thing is we've kind of got to have it fit in too. Let's see what we can do here. Hue will also change the hue of the colors. So it'll so say we have his blue sweater here, and we wanted to make this more like this blue that's in their colors already. We could change it and make it look like that. We could have it look like the neon kind of green bluish teal color that they have going on there. We could make it look like that if we wanted to. Now I don't really want to do that just because it looks weird. That's obviously not what that was intended to look like. I think we're gonna move that more here just so this looks vibrant. It looks a lot more like it belongs here. And then we're gonna change the luminance, I think, just so it doesn't look super bright, or maybe the saturation just so it doesn't look super mega bright. Let's do like a -15 there, and we'll change the luminance maybe a little bit. Alright, I think that looks a lot better than the original. This looks, I think, a lot more like it'll fit in. So that's color mixing. Next thing we're gonna do, I usually don't mess with split toning or optics. Geometry, which I think is new to this camera update. There's also effects and calibration, which we're not going to mess with for right now. So this is another way of changing colors, but I think that looks pretty okay. I upped the saturation originally. I think we're going to turn that. I know we don't want him to look too pale, so maybe we'll leave that. Go to color mixer maybe and try and give him some more like kind of color, I guess. So say we were trying to fix his skin. We didn't want it to be too desaturated. We could go back and fix the saturation in the color mixer there. So say I put that back there, and then we went to, there it is, color mixer. We could up the saturation on just like his face. 10, I don't want his lips to be too bright. And then did like a 15, and then maybe another 15 depending on what his skin is under. Looks to be, there's pieces under yellow, pieces under orange, and pieces under red. Let's not zoom in too much there. It's too bright, I think. Let's do like 50. Actually looks low-key decent. Ooh, we do not want to do that. Okay. Add some more color back there. There we go. So it looks a lot more like a person and not like he's like dying or anything. So if you were gonna desaturate the face, you just go do it all in one go. You just make the whole thing black and white rather than having it be like a really low saturation, because then it just makes him look very ghostly pale. So that I think is what we're gonna do. This looks, I think, a lot better than the original photo. We're looking at this now. I think he still looks a little bit too yellow, so we're gonna go back in camera and fix this. But I think this is definitely an improvement over the original that we had. So let's see, we're gonna make the temperature a little bit more blue. Oh, that was too blue. We'll make that a little bit more blue, but we don't want to make him too pale, so maybe we turn down some of the highlights there and darken some stuff up a little bit. There we go. I think that's a little bit better. All right. There we go. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. He looks a lot less yellow. I think another thing we could also do is, because of how this was kind of as a green screen, some of his hair retains some of the green parts, just to try and keep his hair looking a little bit normal. So I think what I did in the original color correction was I turned down the saturation of green. I turned it down just so the edges, so it'll mess with the edges a little bit, but I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Overall, I think we ended up with a better color correction there. I still think this color correction could definitely be better, but I think it's better than what we had before this. Let's see, we go back here to what the color correction was originally. Go back here. This is what the original. This is what this original color correction was. He looks deathly pale, and now we have. Let's paste this in here. Now we have this color correction. Went from that to this, where he looks a lot better. So, alright, that's gonna be all for today's episode of Together We Design. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and learned something new. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to catch more fun and exciting Triumph content, as well as the next episodes of Together We Design. Thank you and goodbye.